Hey everybody, Zach here from Brushfire Studios with another edition of Different Strokes. So again, we're piggybacking on the Anvil of War YouTube channel. So thanks Adam for hooking that up. So today we're going to be doing some more work on Gabriel Angelos, the Primarch. So this is a forge row model that we've been picking away at. So far we've tackled the reds. So I'm fairly happy with how those have turned out. Might go back and touch them up a little bit at the end. But reds are done, metals are done. We've got the whites and the shoulder pads. So today what we're going to be looking at doing is the purity seals. There's a few of them here. Down here on the shin pad, chest. Yeah. But then also we're going to be taking a look at there's a center skull here at the same time. We'll do that. There's a scroll on the front. We'll do that. And then looking at it here, I am also going to do something with this this little loincloth here in the front. I'm going to change that color up a little bit just to break up the model here. So that is the plan for today. If we go beyond it, awesome. While there is dry time and stuff like that, maybe I'll pick away at the base a little bit more. Again, to reiterate from the other week, I went with the green base as opposed to the brown base and the cover art, just for a little extra contrast. I find it a little more interesting. Once this is more vibrant, it should really stand out against the red armor. So anyway, very excited with how this model is going. A couple other things that I want to show you before we get started is there's a Gaunt Summoner that I've been talking about doing as well on stream, but I had the opportunity to sort of do some live paint demos over the weekend, not online, but in person. So I took the opportunity to work on this Gaunt Summoner a little bit. So what we did here is I haven't touched the blues yet. That was all done with pre-shading. So zenithal shading via airbrush, and then diluted colors on top to let the colors show through and give you that natural gradient in the cloak. Same thing with the top of the base here. But what I did do is I did most of the metallics. There's a little bit left to do on them. Started the top of the staff, did the face and the skin tones for this one here. Just get it out of the light a little bit. There we go. Turn it down a bit. So for this one here, what I did was more pallid flesh, and then we worked on some script work inside of the actual book. If you can see a little plug to Brushfire Studios in there, a little cookie for anybody, or an Easter egg. So anyway, worked on that. And then as well, I just got something in mail today from a guy, Jason, Black Thumb Studios. He's on the east coast of Canada, New Brunswick. So what we have here is a conversion that he did. There was a little bit of breakage in shipping, but what we have here is like a griffin model converted with horns. It's got his claws and everything like that. But the idea for this one here that I will be doing is to be a custom mount for a Chaos Sorcerer, whether you want to use it in Age of Sigmar or in Warhammer 40k. The plan is to make the rider interchangeable. So I do have, well, I got a tail there, but I do have the rider here. So this one is for 40k. So he just sit here. There he goes, fits right in. Got a spear for his weapon. But then he is also holding onto the reins. Just a very cool conversion. Jason, thanks. Looking forward to getting this started. This will be a pretty fun collaboration. So if anybody had seen the knight that I've been working on, the Space Wolf Knight, Jason was the guy who actually did the custom base for that. So He's been doing awesome work as a collaborative, I guess in collaborative projects. This is the base that he did for the mount here. You just have the standard large oval base. He's got some cork on here, but what he does, which is pretty neat, is he uses the textured stone to sort of blend in the edges of the cork. If anybody's ever used cork for bases before, it unless you sort of dress the edges, it really, really does look obviously like cork, which is not the goal. And then just a quick little plug here again is I am working on a brand new night. We are actually about halfway finished it. For this, it is sort of a gray and white scheme. I haven't glued anything together yet. Gray and white scheme with gold trim work. Let's see if I'll pull up another piece here. This is going to be sort of the underbelly. You know, it's going to sit down here like this kind of thing. But I am looking for some opinions here on the exhaust ports. I am going to do an OSL glow from the from all the vent holes on here, as well as it's got some pretty enormous plasma weapons, quad cannons, I believe, on the arms. So looking for some input on color choices there. I'm personally thinking like a blue teal kind of thing. I don't want like a straight magical blue. I think that's just a little overdone. I don't really think that red will fit this model very well, so that's why I'm kind of leaning more towards like a teal blue green kind of thing. Let's see if anybody's familiar with Gauss Blaster Green. I'm kind of leaning towards this, maybe a little bit bluer, and then transitioning to this into the center, followed by whites. But OSL is a tutorial for future videos because we won't be doing anything with OSL wise with Gabriel here. So first step, as always, all I'm doing is just getting my brush nice and wet. Again, I've been using these Artis Opus brushes and they have been phenomenal. Really, really liking them. They're holding their point very, very well. You see against my finger here. This is a size 0. There is enough bristle thickness on it that it is holding exactly the amount of paint that I want for this type of model here. But I do have sizes from 1 all the way down to 000. Okay, so let's dive right into skulls and the purity seals. So for this, I do any sort of scrolls and skulls in generally the same manner, with minor variances here and there, depending on what paints I'm working with. Today I'm going to be using Vallejo Game Color. This one is khaki. This is going to be my base color. Okay, so before the stream, I was kind of in a rush. I didn't have a chance to pre-shake everything. Unfortunately, I usually do get a chance to do that. But again, kind of in a rush. I had an event on the weekend and I brought all my go-to stuff with me. And you know, just the way that life is, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to get everything done. Sorry, in 1 sec, I was just letting Adam know that everything is live. And we are good to go. Well, we've been good to go for about 15 minutes now, I think. So, that being said, we're going to jump right in. So, using my wet palette as well. Wet palette, phenomenal for keeping everything nice and moist. Okay, I'm just going to start down here in the bottom. This purity seal on the front shin pad. Okay, now I'm just going to work my way up the model. This part here that I was painting in particular might be hard to see. Trying to angle it for you here on the camera. Unfortunately, it's kind of hidden behind the handle of his Warhammer. So once we've got the tan colors down, we're going to throw a layer of Agrax Earthshade on there. Now, I don't always use washes, but I also don't shy away from them either. I don't know if I mentioned it before, some people frown on it, you know, saying, oh, you know, it's easy mode or anything, something like that. Well, I mean, it's another tool in the toolbox. It's something you're using to achieve a desired effect, and if it works, go to town. You know, don't let anybody tell you what you can and can't use. I mean, if you have another method, by all means, let me know. But I'm very comfortable and very happy with how the effect works here. See. Finecast here is pretty cool for the details. You know, you can get nice sharp lines, hard corners and everything like that at a very fine detail, more so than the plastic, but man, having such fine details really does make it difficult to get proper coverage with the paint. So you kind of got to be diligent that you're not trapping little air bubbles or air pockets inside those details. Otherwise, once the paint starts to dry, then that bubble will pop and you'll be left with you know, a little bit of your base color showing through, your primer showing through. I know you can't really see it on camera here, but I do have my my water cup here in the top corner. Yeah, it's a little murky. I was doing some white highlights there earlier, so I didn't bother changing. It's not too bad. I'm not too worried about it, to be honest with you. Some people are total purists. I'm not one of them. Speaking of purists, the purity seal up here on the chest. I'm going to start going to town on this. This one you should be able to see a little bit better. And in my water, I am dipping my brush very regularly to clean out the bristles. Make sure that there's no paint in there that is going to dry. These are very expensive brushes, so I am doing my due diligence in making sure that they're properly cared for. More so than if I was just getting wear and tear brushes, you know, from the dollar store or something like that. I do that quite a bit, not for layering or anything like that, but if I need to just quickly base coat a large area and just slop paint on, then I'll use a dollar store paintbrush. If I am doing washes, I'll use a cheap paintbrush. This one here, it's a Reaper synthetic brush. You know, cost me a few dollars, but synthetic brushes are my go-to for use and abuse. But I digress. Invest in good brushes. Just like invest in quality models. If you're into painting models, paint good models. You know, yeah, you can start learning on, you know, low-end models without much detail and stuff like that, but you know, it's kind of like the equivalent of painting on a proper canvas versus construction paper. You're not going to get the same effect. Oh, I don't think you can see it here, but there's an air bubble right in one of the eye sockets of the skull here. Yeah, that's not showing up on camera. I'm not going to play with the settings either to mess around with it, but again, I caught that and I'm just filling it in, making sure that the skull is nice and touched up. And I'm also going to do the skulls on his arms. And then there's a couple on the base that I'm also going to do while I'm at it. I really, really hate having to go back and redo a color on a model. That drives me up the wall. I do like to get everything done all at once. It can be tedious sometimes, especially when you're only working on individual parts of a model. So, for example, this is a non-metallic metal Stormcast Eternal that I did for a painting competition. When I was working on this, I took it one piece at a time. You know, I started with the, what did I start with? I think I started with the chest, and then I did the leg, the arm, then both shoulder pads, and then the shield, and then the helmet. Now, the biggest pain for me doing this was recording and, well, I guess documenting specifically which section I did. Or sorry, not which section I did, but how I did each section. So how was I getting the exact mix of, you know, sand colors and browns and whites, yellows. So how was I doing that? And it was important to also not take too much time off between each section. It was take each part, you know, in day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 kind of thing. Because if I took too much time off, then I would start to forget exactly how I did it. I wanted to just be fresh in my mind. So that was a huge pain. So that's one of the reasons why I dislike doing, missing colors and having to go back and redo them, because it might not be the exact same. Now, something like the purity seals and bones and stuff like that, that doesn't really matter too much, because it's a pretty straightforward process right here. Which, speaking of, I do describe myself as I'll call it a process painter. Now what I mean by that is I figure out a system that works for certain effects, and I generally stick to that. Not to say that I don't challenge myself to learn new techniques and learn how to do things differently. I absolutely do. But for the actual commission painting side of things, what I've been developing is a style of painting. Like I said, it's darker, and you know, if somebody wants something that has lots of purity seals on it, or red armor, then because I'm doing things in a similar fashion, they're going to have a better idea of what the end result is going to be, because everything is different. Everything does come out differently, because every miniature is different, every paint job is different, and it is custom work, right? All right, so let's see. Let's make sure that we got everything lined up. So, oh yeah, and I went ahead and did this without saying anything. I didn't want to do this shoulder icon in gold. I want to do it in a different color, and I've settled on bone, and I literally just picked that now as we were going through this. So I've been kind of mulling it over. I was initially thinking sort of like a ruby red, but I think that would clash too much with the red armor. And then previously, I think it was the last stream, maybe the one before, I had dropped this model and knocked him off the base, so I had to glue him back on. But when I glued him back on with the super glue, that left some rather nasty frosting here on the bottom of the pauldron. No, that's not a pauldron, is it? That's a greave. Sorry, like the greaves, the shin guards. So because the the shading for the red armor was actually done in blues and blacks, I was able to just clean it up with the Drakenhof Nightshade. That's what it is. We have it here. Yeah, Drakenhof Nightshade. So I just cleaned it up with that because it's dilute, it's not going to mess with the finish, and it dries a dark matte color. So that kind of saved the day. So here I'm just going to go around and find any skulls that are on this base. Take care of those. There's lots of cool details on these bases too. Very neat. So this is the playable base that we have here. This is what somebody would use for actual gameplay. And then there's also the display base that is off to the side, way over there by my brushes. I'm not going to bother reaching for it just yet, but I will go over to try to see if there's any skulls or anything like on it. To be honest with you, I don't really remember. It's been a couple weeks since I picked this model up. See, I'm only doing 3 streams a month, taking every so 1 out of every 4 Wednesdays off. That's just sort of I have other commitments that I can't stream every single week, but I will let everybody know in advance. I know the Anvil of War guys will be on top of that as well. One more shout out to Anvil of War, Adam in particular. This has been great. I'm really liking this so far. I'm very low tech, in case anybody hadn't figured out from all of the streaming difficulties that I had the first couple sessions. Okay. So just base coating some bones here. This looks like it would be maybe a femur of some sort. It's got a nice big ball on the end of it here. So I'm going to go with femur. It's a nice big bone. Okay, we've got a nice big skull here. Looks like it's been caved in. Like I said, very cool. Like the fine cast has some awesome details, but I mean it is a pain to work with because it always comes, you know, miscast. It's super fragile. But the details on them can be rather spectacular. You do have to be very diligent, however, with the cleaning of the model. You know, if you get any of that resin webbing in the small details, and then you've missed it and you're primed it and you're into painting, and then all of a sudden your brush can't pass over a detail because it's got this little almost invisible piece of resin. All that flashing. So when you're base coating stuff too, especially with fine details, don't be afraid to dilute the paint a little more than you normally would. If it's a base coat, you do want it. For the most part, there are certain instances where you don't want it to go into the recessed areas, but base coats generally, that's where you want them to fall. You want it to get the darkest areas because your base coat is going to be the darker color generally. Okay, so that skull, and then we got some more on the part fixed to the base. Let's see, let's go around. Nothing here. We got one here in the middle, and then we got one tucked over on the two tucked over on the side here. Okay, let's rock it. Okay, clean my brush. Keep cleaning those brushes. Gotta keep cleaning them. The last thing you want is any paint to dry in there because, you know, even with the brush conditioner and the soaps and everything like that you use, you don't have to use it after every time you switch paints, but use it after every session. Clean your brushes. if you get any paint drying in there, oh man, you're in for a fight to get it out. And if it goes up into the ferrule here, you're done. Your brush is done, really. You're on borrowed time. The tip will stay for a bit, but it's going to fade very quick. All right. Another skull. I believe this is the last one. Now the metallics on the bases haven't been done either. All I did was base coat them. I left them. I didn't really have the time or the desire at that particular moment to do it. I was focused on the metallics for Gabriel himself. I'm pretty satisfied with how that's gone. Okay, next up, putting the acrylic paint, my good brush down. I'm going to move on to some Agrax Earthshade. Okay, going to give everything a second here. I'm going to get these skulls to dry and play my next move. You know what? We're going to be doing something a little different while those bases are drying. Sorry, while the base coat and then the Agrax Earthshade is drying. We're going to be doing some of that crackling lightning effect on Gabriel's weapon. There's some pretty cool little striations and cracks in the hammer itself that are perfect for this effect. I mean, they have it in the cover art, but even if it wasn't, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm a genius or anything like that, but it would be a pretty genius idea. Okay. Now what I'm going to be doing for that to start is going to be Arctic Blue from Scale 75. Those ones being my favorite paints. They don't see a ton of use because they're hard to get here, and I do try to like to use them sparingly. But as a result, they do require a little extra shake before use. Oh boy. And they also like to clog in the tip. Let's see. I had a pin around here. Oh yeah. There we go. Okay. Always keep these handy. If you're using dropper bottles, always have the safety pin on you. Do not try to force this. If you paint with any sort of consistency or frequency, and you are into watching painting videos or painting, Instagram accounts and stuff like that, you're going to see all the time the people that have gotten the clogged nozzle on the dropper bottle. They have tried to force it, and then they squeeze, and this entire top pops right off and empties half their paint. So instead, we're just going to keep a pin handy because we are not cavemen. We don't need to try to force everything. Just clean it off with my baby wipe from Costco. Painter's best friend. Holy, especially if you use an airbrush. If you use an airbrush, you better have a pack of baby wipes sitting beside you. Those things are lifesavers. So good for cleaning up your brush. There we go. Yes. All right. Okay. Just gonna clean the tip. Hopefully it doesn't dry up the same way. I mean, it is annoying, but it is what it is. You just got to be patient with it. Still had a bit of spray out of it, but nothing crazy. I only had a little drop. That's about it. Got it on my fingers. That's the one thing. Keep an eye on your fingers too. Get paint on your fingers. The last thing you want to be doing is handling a model that you're working hard on. and have wet paint on your fingers, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you've streaked your model blue. Yeah. So we've got our Agrax Earthshade there. We've got our cheapo synthetic brush. You can see the tip is starting to curl and fray. Actually, it's not starting. It's been doing that for a while. And all the paint is getting up into the ferrule of the brush here. That would happen quite a while ago. So I'm not too worried about the use and abuse on this one. So the Agrax Earthshade and other washes, make sure you shake them. All that dense pigment is going to sit in the bottom. And if you don't shake it, you're basically messing with the finish. What you want to do is get it properly mixed, and that way you're going to get something that's going to dry a little bit matter. If you don't shake it and you're just pulling the stuff from the top, all you're really doing is pulling a little bit of pigment and a whole lot of binding agent, and that is just going to make the finish look glossy. It's the same thing as if you're mixing your paints with flow aid or drying retarder because you want to wet blend and you want more time to be able to do it with. If you use too much, it's going to give you a glossy finish to your paint. So there we go. So what I'm doing here is anything that I did in that tan color, the Vallejo Game Color Khaki, I'm just going over with a layer of Agrax Earthshade. That's it. I mean, that's not it, but that's all I'm doing at the moment. This is a great second step to these tan colors. You know, like I said, washes are great, especially for what I'm doing here. Because for me and my painting style, the skulls and the parchment, I want it to look worn, right? Now, what better way to make it look worn than to have those dark pools of Agrax Earthshade? And then all I do from there is I work around that. So it gives it a naturally weathered look. You know, because really, like, think about it. Piece of parchment hanging off an 8-foot tall, you know, super soldier's armor. Yeah, it's going to look weathered. It's not going to look very pristine, especially in the middle of battle. Same thing here. Oh, you know what I did? Missed a bone here. Damn it. Okay. See what I mean? Drives me crazy. I knew there was a shell casing up here that I wanted to do in a bronze color. But here we go. Let's get that bone real quick. I'm going to come back to it at the very end once I have done the Agrax Earthshade on everything. Okay. There we go. Okay, back to the Earthshade. So we did the purity seals. I'm going to do the skull on the front down here. You know, very generous with the amount of Agrax that I'm using. Especially in this larger skull. Larger skull, larger pools of color. Can't go wrong with the Games Workshop washes. See how it wasn't quite dried properly. That's my bad for not quite paying attention to that. It's okay. Let's give it a couple seconds and I'll go back. See, with the with all the Games Workshop paints, I did have lots of those paint pots, but what I did is I decanted them into just cheap dropper bottles that I got from China. It's like $50 for 50 bottles or something like that. But the washes are just fine straight out of the pot. Let's get these skulls on the side. go back to those last two pieces of bone. Let's see if this one is ready. Yeah, should be. I'm just going to pick up some extra. There we go. Not too worried about it because you know what? The more color variation in this skull, the better. Really. It's a large skull. I want it to look really nasty, really weathered, like it's been sitting there for quite a while. Oh yeah, and then we got that one piece of bone up here on the top of the base. Okay. That. Lovely. Lovely. Okay, that's it for the Edgar Sorche. I believe we won't need it again tonight. Good. Okay, next we're going to be going on to the blue. Let's have a sip of water here, hang on. Yum. Okay, just for this, for posterity, I'm going to go ahead and use a brush other than a size 0. I obsessively put the caps back on these brushes. If anybody has kids, I'm sure you understand. They can be demons. And they can really mess with your stuff, you know what I mean? So it is in your best interest to put your caps back on. Let's see here. We're going to use a 00. Don't need that cheapo brush right now. We're good, okay. So yeah, we are going back. We were using the Arctic Blue from Vallejo. Okay. And all I'm doing here is I'm just going into those little recesses in the hammer. See, these kind of colors are also good for like a patina if you want to weather the metallics. And got a little bit of crackling over here on the underside. A little bit on the head of the hammer. Let's see if we can get this color here showing up properly on camera. Still figuring the camera work out. Let's see. There, that might be better. Yeah, so I'm just doing some blue in here. Let's see. Just wherever there's cracks and little dents in it. Just fine little lines. Gonna give it lots of character. Now, to be clear, I am generally following a lot of the box art patterning for this guy. You know, Games Workshop, Forge World, it's not full of dummies, you know. They know what they're doing. They can pick a good color scheme, and they do. It is fun to break away from the norm, but their norm is generally pretty good looking. Right. Do I have any more cracks? Yeah, over here. Oh, a little bit of paint. It's starting to dry. See, when you're doing the fine detail stuff and you're doing line work and whatever, you have to make sure that you wash your brush very, very consistently. If you don't, if you only just have the paint on the very tip of the brush, it does dry very quickly. Where were we? Got some here. Okay. Believe that's that for that. We might be able to move back onto the khaki colors. Let's see. I think I might just do a little bit more of this color here, and then I'm going to brighten it up. Because I'm here already, I'm just going to finish this off, this effect on the hammer. Then I can call that done, which would be good. See, now when I said a little earlier that this blue here would be good for doing a sort of patina, like any sort of like weathered armor. I wouldn't use it at the same time as I'm using it for a crackling energy effect on the weapon. When you duplicate colors, it does take away from the effect that you want. So pick one effect that you want the color for, and then change it up just a little bit for the other item that you're going to be doing. So, you know, I might be doing blue here for the crackling energy, but then if I wanted to weather the bronze pieces, then I might use more of a green tinted blue. But I know that sort of flies in the face of what I'm doing with the skulls and the parchment, but you'll see after the base colors here, it is going to change up and be a little bit different. So bear with me on that one. So all I'm going to do here for the, where's my white? For the blue, I'm just going to brighten it up a bit. Just going to grab some white, toss it in my wet palette. Just got a junk brush, a little bit of water, some white. Just toss it into the blue here. Just pull some of the blue out of my little pool of blue until it is exactly the color that I want. Because I'm not going to be reusing it for anything, I'm not too worried about remembering the ratio. Also because it's a super fine detail that I'm going to be doing here, not too concerned. All we have here is a few little nodes on this hammer that I want to be glowing just a little bit more than those blue recesses. Go. Might as well get the ones on the underside. Shading does not cancel out the effect of a glow. So if it's in the shadow, it should really glow more. And which it does appear to glow more than this on this end, just for the simple fact that all the colors on the underside here are a lot darker. So you can see that glowing effect a little better on camera than you can on the top here. Because on the top it's brighter. Know what I mean? Okay, so what I will do while I'm at it, just gonna put the tiniest little edge highlights on the on those ridges. Almost, I can guarantee this isn't even going to show up on camera, but you know what? When I'm looking at it here, it looks very good. I'll see what I can do at the end to adjust the camera. I'll play around with the settings for a couple minutes just so I can show everybody the actual detail work that was happening. Okay. So the idea with the edge highlight here is that, you know, there is a glowing coming from those cracks, but it's not enough to illuminate the hammer itself. But what it is doing, because it is a metallic head on the hammer, it is catching from that node, that glowing node and those cracks, it is catching the very edge of the metals. So you are getting a little bit of a shine effect from it. Let's see here. So I've spoken to this before, but when I paint, I mean, a lot of the time I do try not to overly handle the model, hence the hobby holder. But it's kind of a bad habit, but I find it very beneficial to rest a pinky or another finger, something against the model itself. It just helps steady it, for me anyway. Okay, coming along. This is going pretty quick. This is my favorite stuff to do too. It's just those cool final details that really tie an effect together. Get the underside. Let's see. Yeah, baby. Looking tight. So disappointing. Nobody wants to talk to me this week. Nobody active in the chat. Come on, guys. Talk to me. Do you have any idea how hard it is to sit here and literally talk to myself for hours while I'm painting? And I sound like a crazy person. And the ceiling above me isn't finished, so it's basically the only thing separating my voice from the rest of the house is the subfloor. So I'm sure that my wife is sitting upstairs right now having a good laugh over the fact that I'm sitting down here running my mouth just to make it entertaining for playbacks. I mean, I would think that this is the best kind of thing to watch live. So get on that. Come on, every Wednesdays, 8:30. Again, not every Wednesday. 3 out of 4 Wednesdays because of other commitments. Okay, so we got... Yeah, you know, I am happy with that. I think that's turned out. Here, what I'm going to do here let's open this up. Can I see? Is my properties for my camera? Yeah, okay. Let's see. No, that's too much. There. You see they got that blue glowing crackling energy effect in here, eh? Pretty neat. I'm very, very happy with that. Okay, let's get it back here into painting focus range. There we go. That's pretty good. Tuck that away. Come on. Here, well, you know what? I got about like I want to say like a half an hour left in me, because I've been going till 10, so we definitely have time to get these skulls and all this parchment text done. But for now, I'm going to put this size 0 away because I don't need it. You know, like, generally speaking, brushes have the same size tip. They all come to a point. The more influencing factor in what kind of brush you're using is bristle length and the thickness coming out of the ferrule. The more bristle you have, the more paint you're going to hold, right? So that's why, you know, like a size 0 is better for, you know, a 000 for layering. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my khaki color here. Now the khaki, what I'm going to do is just going back over the purity seals here, leaving those recesses dark, you know, leaving them dark. Okay. Okay. Easy peasy. Okay, so that's it for purity seals. The shoulder emblem here is just going to be the bone color, so I'm not going to worry about texturing it, but I am going to texture those skulls. See, make sure we get all those lines. You know, I just want it to look sharp and crisp up here. It is like a, you know, a set icon onto the shoulder. It's not just a piece of fluff added to the base. You know, this was cast into the armor, so I want it to be sharp. I'm looking forward to having some final photos of this guy. I've been looking forward to getting him done for quite a while. Okay, so here I'm going to start at the skulls. I'm just going to start on the base. What I'm doing is a very dilute very dilute khaki color. So I'm just getting my brush nice and wet. Now, when you get your brush nice and wet, that also means that the paint is going to travel quickly up the bristles into the ferrule. So don't let it linger. Okay? So wet brush, just a little bit of paint. So you're almost like doing a khaki colored wash over top of the bones. Okay, but the khaki colored wash, what you're doing is you are leaving those darkest recesses because you're actually painting this stuff on in. Okay, so what that's going to do, it is going to, so I guess basically what we're doing is we're just glazing it. Okay. But we're only glazing the highlights. Okay, letting some pooling occur, which is fine. It's giving us a more natural texture to to the bones. Okay, clean my brush off. A bit more water. Tackle that femur. Okay, we go. It's because we want these to look weathered. You know, splotchy is good. Splotchy is good. I'm going for realism here on these skulls. All I'm really doing with that, we'll call it a khaki glaze, is taking away the look of it being washed. Guys, just another tool in the toolbox. Bear with me here for a sec. Okay. Yes. Okay. What are we going to do next? We're going to have, here we go, another game color, like a tan color. Let's see here. Sorry, you know what? The white on that is shining pretty bright. So I got two lights here. Damn it. There we go, I think. Yeah, bone white. Okay, it's not white. It is a tan color. This is going to be my highlight. Just need a sip of water. Oh. I am used to talking a lot, but it never gets any easier. Always hurts the back of your throat. Oh, looks like we got some drying on the tip. Again, don't rush it. First thing I'm going to do is that there. See, it's all crusted on. First thing I'm going to do is clean that off. Okay. And then my trusty pin, where'd you go? Again. Just had ya. No. Oh, there we go. Hiding behind the earth shade. Okay. Put that away. Alright. Just work it down. Okay, clean it out a little bit. Maybe even just run it up the side, scoop out some of that extra dried paint. That should help prevent it from clogging as quick in the future. Okay. Put my pin away. Don't want to stab myself. Get some bone white onto my palette. Okay. Now what we're going to do. For the purity seals, take just a little bit of bone white on the tip. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it an edge highlight quick edge highlight. Okay, but then a little bit more. I'm going to feather in little streaks just from each head, not quite going to the center and absolutely not hitting those recessed areas that hold the pooled pigment from the Agrax Earthshade. This is going to give it that weathered parchment look. You got multiple different colors of tan in here, including the Agrax Earthshade being the darkest. You have your base of khaki color that it all went over. So base of khaki, Agrax Earthshade to darken it all down a little bit and keep it a matte, because that's how it dries if you shake it well enough. And then reapplied the khaki as the base layer. And then just a little edge highlight. It doesn't have to be meticulous, but just to quickly define the edge of the purity seal. And then that streaking coming in from that edge highlight right? Just very, very fine, very delicate brush strokes. Just little flicks. Don't overdo it. Same thing here on this scroll, but we're going to be doing it from sort of a different angle. Instead of coming across a purity seal, we're just going down the edge of the where the roll is. Okay, again, and you do not want to hit the recessed areas. Okay, so that's the purity seals, painted and textured. We'll do just a little bit of script on it here shortly. Okay, but right now, we're going to do the skulls. The skulls, we're just going to give them just a bit of the highlight color here, just where the sun would catch. That's it. Okay, you can do a couple dots here and there, just a little stippling. Okay, I'm a fan of stippling as weathering and texturing. Okay, the sun would catch. Got the light on this skull coming in from this way, just like always. That's how we did the armor shadows and everything, and the lighting on the metallics. Okay, so nothing's going to change. That stays consistent across the board. Whenever something is catching light, you're assuming it's coming from the same direction. Otherwise, you will ruin the effect on your model. Skull. Just quickly define those cracks in the top. Maybe the brow ridge, nose bone, eye sockets, and then a little bit of the maxilla. This looks like another femur up here because that big socket that it has. And with these bones, there is no edge highlighting. All we're doing is just creating some texture and some highlights. Through here. Down this long bone here, and then I'll do that skull. And just a few highlights, nothing crazy. Basically just streaking along the bone and then picking out those high points. Skull is going to get a little bit on the sharper edges, but again, it's not an edge highlight. Okay. This one still has its teeth, so you know what I am going to do is I am going to get those teeth. Because it's fine cast, man, they are tiny. But I'm very confident in my ability to pick out those teeth individually. Very, very confident. Famous last words. Okay, let's do it. And I'm doing it with the size 0 here, just to prove a point. This is the finest detail on this entire model. Is the teeth on this skull. And you know what? I'm going to get them all individually just to prove that you don't need a size 10-0 to do the tiny details. You need brush control. You need to know how fast the paint is going to dry on the brush and how much working time that is going to give you. Freaking beautiful. Done it. First try, no problem. Size 0. I actually finished speaking and then I double checked. It is a size 0. I was thinking that I was going to look pretty stupid if I was running my mouth about that and I was using something that I didn't say I was. Okay. Put a little bit of stippling on the top of this little chrome dome here. See, with larger skulls and stuff like that, when I do stippling, I do it in layers too. So what I would do is I would do a darker stipple, and then I would stipple over top of each stipple mark individually with the lighter bone color. That gives a pretty darn cool effect. There we go. And a little bit stippling for you too. Stippling is basically just coming up and down on it like this. Tiny, tiny, tiny little marks. In case you don't know what stippling is, think of it as a tattoo gun. You know, that's kind of the motion you want to mimic. It's just the needle on a tattoo gun. Just, know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean. See, just stippling and just up and down, up and down, up and down, real quick, right? I keep finding myself pulling the model and everything like that off camera, and I apologize for that. Getting a lot better at making sure that I frame everything optimally. Okay, next up. So anyway, sorry, I digress. That is it for the skulls. All the skulls are done. Like, let's take a look at this bad boy here, right? Let's focus in on this. I'm gonna see, this is a pain because I have to manually change the focus when I want to hold something up for the camera. Like this. That. Maybe zoom in a bit. There. Check that bad boy out, right? We got all those teeth individually. And it's a nice weathered skull. That is one of my favorite effects to do, is the bone effect. Because it's so simple and it's quick and it looks good. Tell me that doesn't look good. I think it looks great. Okay. See, make sure that we got everything back in focus here. No, wrong way. There. That works, right? Okay, so put him down. Next up, we're going to be using our game color. It's the black one. Okay, give it a good shake. I do also have model color here, but I'm almost out, so it's kind of a pain to get out of the dropper bottle right now. I do prefer the model color over the game color. Reason being is that the model color dries a little more matte, as opposed to the game color, which dries in a glossier fashion. So you can limit the amount of gloss by aggregating and shaking it quite a bit. It's the same principle as with the washes. You want to make sure that everything's mixed together, or else that binding agent is going to give you the glossy finish, because there's too much binding agent for the amount of pigment that you're collecting. But yeah, like I said, that model color is my favorite because it dries. It has a natural matte finish to it, and I do prefer a matte finish to anything other than metallics. I don't like. It's good for photography as well, because I do photograph almost every model that we do. The more matte the finish, the less gloss, or sorry, the less shine it has, and the easier it is to work on camera. So we're going to do some just some Purity Seal script work here. So you know what I will do is I think I'm actually going to zoom in for this one. Let's get this nice and close. Wah, 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 wah. Like the effects? I do. Okay, let's see. Okay, where do I want it? Right here. Okay, Zach, don't move. Don't move. Oh, damn it, I should have made sure that I was in a good spot first. So all we're doing here, because you can't really write letters and stuff like that in here, all we're doing is going to stipple in lines from one side to another, up and down, up and down, up and down. Do not drag the brush across, or else you'll just look like you're doing lines. You got to stipple it. You know, they can be somewhat close together. You know, they can even be connecting really, but you want a very sporadic, rough looking line that's broken in a lot of places, you know. And then matte, if it's a matte finish like on the model color, then what you're doing is you're getting that natural weathered look too, as opposed to a gloss, because a gloss looks just very finished and polished. You know, you're not doing polished gloss writing on a purity seal, right? It's just ridiculous. Okay. So there we go. You know what? That was it for the script work. We just had the two, right? We had the purity seal up here. We had the purity seal down on the bottom. We finished the skulls today. I'm happy with where this is for today. I had initially wanted to start to take care of the loincloth here, but you know, being 10 to 10, I'm pretty darn exhausted. I've had a few late nights, so I'm gonna call it here 10 minutes early, because I've accomplished everything that I think I can reasonably accomplish. Next week I will be back 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. See if we can get this model in focus here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'll be back next Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll do some more. We'll do that loincloth. We'll finish the staff, and we'll do his hair, finish the skin, and then that should be it for the actual Gabriel Angelos. So we'll have one more night of him, and one more night of those of the base, and then I believe we'll be able to call it. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for stopping in and watching. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, if there's anything you'd like to see for next week, throw it up in the comments. I'll be in touch with Anvil of War on a regular basis, and we'll get any questions answered and address anything next week that needs to be addressed. All right. Thanks, guys.